I've lucked out, and Two Hawks has told me an interesting tale about the tar pits of Virginia. Now, I was pretty much born and raised near or on a reservation, thinking I knew something about being an American Indian, or a damned Indian, or a papoose, or whatever. And the more I get into this documentary, the less I know. But these tar pits intrigue the hell out of me. And you found them, actually.
Yeah, on our property, most of my family still live on pre-contact land, which we've inhabited before contact and to present day. And we have a lot of stories and oral traditions that go along with living on these lands that are pretty much still virgin lands. And one of them happened to be chasing down one of the stories of some of my family's oral traditions, and it referred to some of the places where our old villages were, and some of the longhouses were there. And I happened to locate an individual within my family that actually knew the actual location that had been told by a family member who is actually still living, and he's 103 years old. And the family member happened to be on their deathbed at the time that I spoke to them about this location of this village on our properties. Because you're probably talking about at least 800 to 1,000 acres property, in which the College of William and Mary happened to do a study and a dig there on the property, in which they took about maybe 150 Native American artifacts off of our properties. But hunting down the location of this oral tradition became extremely difficult. I decided to interview one of the last family members that actually knew the location, and when I did, the family member happened to be on their deathbed, literally. And I went there with some elder family members, and when it was brought up to this particular family member, he almost appeared as if he'd never heard of any of this information before, and it was so vague, and he was, of course, so sick, and I guess I kind of thought maybe I was in trouble, because maybe I would not get the information that he knew. He wouldn't tell me. And after a short period of time, I ended up excusing my family members, a couple of my family members that I had brought with me to this interview. And after I did, I pleaded to my family member. I knew they didn't know me. I was quite younger than they were, but they knew my mother. And I knew this individual had been waiting pretty much all of his life to tell someone what he knew. And I pleaded to that sense of him needing to get this off of his chest. And I let him know that I was that individual that he was waiting for. And he thought about it for a while, and all of a sudden he became extremely animated, as if he was a completely different person. And he began to tell me the story of what happened when the college came and did the digs, and the anthropologists came on our properties. And he described a lot of the burial sites that were there and disturbed, and he described them to a T, so I pretty much knew that it was as he said. He was actually there, and he knew the location where the longhouses were, and he began to tell me about a number of things that I really didn't know about, and which was these tar pits. And I had an elder cousin with me, in which at that time I didn't know, but he knew all about the tar pits and he was more familiar with them than I was. So by the end of the story, on my way home, I actually had a good conversation and a good education about these tar pits, which are still there. You can physically go and see them. And I didn't realize, or you never consider that throughout history, things that Native people do, such as building canoes and different structures like longhouses and waterproofing things, that we had different methods of doing these type of things. Well, these were the actual tar pits left that you physically can go and see today on our properties. It's actually pretty amazing, because a lot of people don't know about it, and they don't know that they're there. And our villages were there because all of these areas where all our properties are, they all have natural springs there, in which the people could sustain themselves there all year round and have fresh water, access to fresh water. So it was very refreshing to hear these stories, but also to go and see these actual tar pits that remain from who knows how many thousands or hundreds of years later.
All given by Mother Nature.
All given by Mother Nature.
For a waterproofing, natural waterproofing. Wow. Thank you very much.
No.